your weekly host, Irv Hughes here. And of course, every week we come at you and bring you some news, tools, tips, strategies, and connect you to resources to help you grow your government contracting business. As always, guys, I'm on here live with the Wall Street Hall of Famer himself, Robert Lendrim.
Yeah.
Robert, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. One of these days, you're going to forget that whole thing about Wall Street and all that.
No,
It's getting smaller in the rear view mirror of my life. So let's just continue to move on. But weekly host. I'm always thinking like weekly, WEAK or WEEK.
No, it's each week, Robert. We're gonna absolutely do that. And I don't know why every week you push back on this introduction. I happen to know that you're a Wall Street Hall of Famer, but that's okay.
Right.
We want our listening audience to know that and have some appreciation for being able to have an audience with you. And that is absolutely why I will not let you off the hook that easy when we're talking about this stuff.
Well,
so
I'm grateful for the respect.
Well, hey, I appreciate that too, man. And I want you to know, man, for guys, listen, this week we have joining us, if you're watching us live here in studio, you'll see that we have our guest on with us, Dr. PJ. And guess what? We are going to really share some great information with you this week. One of the things that I'm really excited about, Robert and I have literally been anticipating having Dr. PJ on with us. And don't forget, if you go to our podcast studio site, you can go to aca.credit/podcast. And there you'll be able to actually go and see a recording for those of you who are just now joining us or who may be joining us later. You'll be able to see a whole list and profiles of our upcoming and invited guests. One of the things you'll see on there, of course, is Dr. PJ. So we've been anticipating this particular time for a while. And so I'm really thrilled to have her join us today. Dr. PJ, welcome to Government Business Today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here too. I've been anticipating it as well.
So Dr. PJ, we're gonna kind of get into some of the things that you've been sharing. I know that you are a book author, and so we're really happy to be sure and ask you some questions about that. I also know that you are a small business advocate, and a business consultant, and so there's quite a few hats that I know that you wear. But nonetheless, we're going to sort of get into all of that because our listeners, I really want our listeners to be able to hear your views on small business. I want them to be able to hear some of the things that you see that small businesses face in their development. Of course, even with regard to some of these folks who are, in fact, most of our audience is, in fact, government contractors or planning to be. And so I certainly want us to touch on some of those takeaways that maybe somebody who is relatively new or thinking about getting into the space, some things that you can share with them that would be some great takeaways for them as we get into this. Okay?
Absolutely.
All right. So we're gonna circle back with you here in just a second. So don't go away. Just stay here because I want for Robert and I to catch up. I want to hear from Robert about what he's run across here this past week. So, Robert, tell us what you've been doing, man.
Oh, man. Here we go. We had it continues to be really interesting and surprising and reaffirming as far as what I'm seeing up here in the Northeast and up in Connecticut. I mean, late last week, had a super interesting call with this gentleman from the government GovCon Chamber of Commerce. And I hope that, in the next maybe month or so, in the next several weeks, or we'll be able to get Neil on the call here. And then I found actually the state of Connecticut has a job that is appointed by Ned Lamont, who's the governor up here. And his position is Chief Marketing Officer or Chief Manufacturing Officer of Connecticut. Gentleman's name is Paul Lavoie, and his entire shtick, his entire mission is traveling around the state of Connecticut, and for all the reasons, but really promoting manufacturing. And I think about the manufacturing because just yesterday, actually, I was speaking with the Minority Construction Council of Connecticut that actually has been putting out a lot of bids. But it occurred to me, so they're putting out bids for construction, but there's also all of this opportunity out there for the actual goods. So, we're trying to figure out a way, how can we leverage what they're doing with what we're doing on the ACA side, and, just really trying to take advantage of a lot of the infrastructure spend. And then I guess the biggest, and then the last thing is Sacred Heart University, which is a school up here over in Fairfield, which is just down the road from where I live. They are really big, teamed up with Verizon with respect to their small business enterprise. And I see like this real movement towards small businesses, this real movement towards diversification, small movement towards equity and grants. So I just am convinced that this is a terrific place to be with respect to how you and I are trafficking and doing what we're doing. And, having Dr. PJ on here to talk about her experience and, what she can offer, it's going to be a good, I really have been looking forward to this all week, especially just with my adventures just this past week.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And, I got to tell you, man, out of all of the work that I've done in and around government, I have not run across anybody that's been appointed by a state governor to be the chief manufacturing officer.
Chief manufacturing officer for the state of
Connecticut. I don't even know who that. I just have no reference to try to point that back to anybody or anything that I've run across. That's for sure.
And Paul, hopefully we'll have him on too. I feel like a lot of the work that I seem to be doing is looking for opportunities to bring guests on, because it's like everybody's just got, it's like as we go down this journey and this path together, it's like everybody's got a terrific story and everybody's got a terrific viewpoint, with respect to the way that they're trying to contribute and build this entire ecosystem of small businesses. And it's just, it's amazing. It's great.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. One of the things that I want to put out there that I don't want to take any more time from Dr. PJ, but one of the things I want to put out there is that on June 6th this year, the Minority Business Development Agency released their Quick Facts report on African-American owned businesses. And of course, it breaks down all companies, and then it breaks them out into these different sectors and categories. And I will tell you that those of you who might be listening, I just want to invite you to go out to Minority Business Development Agency at mbda.gov and search on there for African-American owned fact sheet, FACT, F-A-C-T. And there's some great information out there with regard to the economic impact of small business. There's also some great reports on there about veteran-owned businesses as well. And so I've got the numbers right here. And but the thing is, I wanted to convey to our listeners is, hey, go out and do a little bit of this research. And I think one of the things that will come out of that is it will give you some insights on just how incredibly huge the opportunities are out there for you to be able to grow your government contracting business. For example, and I'll just throw this out, this particular report shows that there's roughly 21 million small businesses out there, of which minority-owned firms make up 9.7 million. So what are we saying? We have work to do, folks. So that means if you are a minority, a woman-owned business, a veteran-owned business, you want to be sure that you connect with us or somebody in your area to get in the game. And so that's my messaging to you guys today. Get in the game, guys, because it also shows, like we've talked about before, Robert, that of course only 6 repeat, 6% of African American owned firms are selling goods.
Mm-hmm.
That means, guys, that you've got literally 94% of the African American owned firms that are in some shape or form, some service type business. And so just know this: if you're in a service business, guys, it's not going to hurt you to adjust your business model where now you can actually add the ability for you to be able to also source products, commercial products, to government agencies that, frankly, you're already selling to. So,
well, it's just, it just makes so much sense too, Oprah. I mean, we've talked about this before about, if you're in one segment of the business, as my granny used to say, it's the same church but a different pew. And
right.
and it's the sort of thing where it's like, if you're already doing services, and to expand or diversify, just even from an investment perspective, into that same vein, to be able to provide goods that you're already sourcing, you're diversifying your business, you're diversifying your income, you're possibly creating more jobs, and it just makes a lot of sense. It really does.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Having said that, talking about making sense,
Yeah.
we have Dr. PJ on with us to help us make sense of some of the things that we've been talking about. And so Dr. Jackson, welcome to Government Business Today. And hey, give us a little backstory on Dr. PJ.
Sure. Again, it's a pleasure to be here. And so, a little backstory about myself and what I do. I do consulting as well as coaching. And so, my approach to things is to understand what legacy role that plays in it. And so, my research is in family career legacies and intergenerational careers. And so, what I do with that, yes, I have my book, Pursuing Legacy, but also with my services and coaching and consulting that I do, I want people to understand it's about legacy. Being in the small business industry and seeing a lot of things, and Irv, we run across people who are just doing things for the now. And if you're just doing things for the now, you won't be here and have longevity when you're doing business. And anybody who's doing business in government, that's a long process. And so my approach is always to start with the individual owner and to really help them to understand their purpose and how do we begin to build legacy with the business that they're doing. So that's a little bit about me and my background and how I got here. And I'm so passionate about helping folks to be better about themselves and to really to understand that purpose so that they can be and prepare for the future.
No, that's fantastic. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear, because your passion comes right through. So not an issue there. So you mentioned a couple of things with regard to your consulting work, and so what types of consulting services actually do you provide? I mean, if somebody, for example, calls up and says, hey, I'm trying to start a business, and you say, well, is it a legacy business? Or, I mean, how do you approach that?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear this. This is like, what is a legacy business?
Yes. So if they call me up, and so what I do is I provide career coaching. I also provide, and that's on a personal level, right? Individual level. And then I also, for the consulting piece of it, it's about vendor development. It's about organizational development. And with that, the legacy piece is the underlying, right? That's the lens that I'm coming through to offer the services that I do in each and everything that I do. Mm-hmm. And so it's not about you saying, how do I make a legacy business, or do you have a legacy business? No, if you work with me, whether you know it or not, you're going to have a legacy business, because that's the lens that I'm educating and helping you and coaching you and consulting you on.
Wow.
Gotcha.
Makes sense.
Okay. So so now you mentioned, we mentioned at the top of the show here that we were kind of talking about your book. And I want to kind of jump on that because I want us to circle back to the book and sort of what motivated that. And you may have already touched on that, but a lot of people are consultants. A lot of people are teaching different things, but you've gone a step farther and actually written a book. And so Just curious, tell us about your book, Pursuing Legacy, and more importantly, how does that play into your role when you're interacting with small businesses?
Yeah, so it's been a couple years, and I just had this fascination with how people um, really develop things that last beyond themselves. And really for me, I'm a history buff. I love learning history, but the history I like learning is about people's individual stories.
Hmm.
And so when I would read about some of the greats in the individual stories, I saw a pattern and noticed that they just didn't emerge in this career or this space that they were operating and how they made their living. There were patterns in their family that led to them doing that. And then I realized working in the small business industry that sometimes those patterns are not there. And those patterns seem to not be there when folks who are having trouble to succeed, right? And so my book, Pursuing Legacy, what I did is I interviewed family businesses. So I had a family business, I think they were 100 years, 100-year-old business, and just seeing the progression of how you come from someone who was selling hair care products through horse and buggy back in the late 1800s, 1900s, to having a hair school and having, being on a TV show about that, and just seeing the patterns and how people are able to, through generations, lay out the foundation for the next generation's future. And so a lot of times that's what's missing is that familial environment, depending on how you're in that space and your environment. And a lot of times, if we don't have that supportive environment, if we don't have the previous generations setting foundations for us in the future, that affects how we react today. And then, therefore, if we didn't have that before, how do we proceed to make it better for the folks that we are producing and they're coming out in future generations? And then we know too with the small businesses are the heart of the communities. That's what's bringing the community together, employing people and also giving back to the community in various different areas. And so my book goes over and highlights six families who have longevity in their business, all the way from the one I just described with the hair care products to one a restaurant, funeral home. And I really look at the dynamics of what it is to have a family business. Sometimes it's not what we realize. And some folks say, well, we started a grocery store and the kids didn't want to do the grocery store and they ended. But a lot of times you're laying that foundation as a grocery store. They don't have to do the exact same grocery store that you did. They can come and add things to that and grow that one grocery store to something that's way more huge and that will last for and continue through other generations. But we got to really understand that, to really understand those skills, identify the purpose, and really begin to lay out the foundation. So that's what the book is talking about, is looking at those stories and taking tips from successful legacies and seeing how that can interplay with folks now. So even if you didn't come from a family that has a legacy or an intergenerational career, what I'm teaching you is how to start that. We need to start
Wow.
worrying about
Wow.
how to build things in the future, because it's like with leadership. If the people that you are leading can't continue on without you there, then how effective is your leadership?
Hmm. Hmm.
Leadership should be able to continue. You should be able to establish a culture that can take place and operate in your absence. It's not just about you, really. And that's the thing in life, is you get to a certain level, and I call it the maturity stage. And this is also backed by research, not just by me. But when you get to the point in life where you realize your life is not your own. It's not about you. It's about what you contribute to this world to make it better, so that when you're gone, it's better for people who are coming after you. And so with that, that's what the book is about. And that's when I'm doing my consulting. I'm coming with that lens to help you to understand that, and how do we build that so that funnels into you having a better business. If you're not in business, having a career that leads to that, into that monumental legacy, and helping others.
Dr. PJ, that's pretty that's that's admirable. I mean, I think about the failure rate of small businesses And then on top of that, the failure rate of multi-generational businesses. And that, I mean, of the 6 families and the 6 businesses, I mean, that's just got to be an extremely small percentage of the overall population. I mean, I've always heard that most family businesses don't survive more than 2 or 3 generations. And it's remarkable, that you've been able to kind of bottle what their secret sauce is, or you've been able to bottle their lightning, as far as how was it that they planned. And that's really cool. I mean, that's really cool. How long did it take you to write the book and interview the families? Were they open to you actually coming in to speak with you about it?
Yeah, so it took me about a year and a half to write the book, which included interviewing the families and writing and editing and all of that. But yeah, they were really open, and I'm a person, I kind of shy away, like, oh my gosh, I hate to hear the answer no, right? So I'm like, oh, they're gonna tell me no if I call and ask them this, and it was just really phenomenal because I even told my family and friends, I'm like, hey, I'm looking for some folks to interview, and they're like, oh, I know somebody, oh, I know someone. And when I call those people up, they're just like, oh, yeah, you coming today? And even one family, they were in Brenham, Texas. So I drove all the way out there, and I was just supposed to interview a father and son. And when I interviewed the father and son, they were just like, oh, no, but you got to meet the other person who's here. And so they would introduce me to another family member. And then I talked to that family member, and he was like, no, but you got to talk to my son. I want him to get into this. And so I talked to the son. And so it was just, when people realizing that you really want to know about their family business, because it's a pride that's associated with
Oh
that.
yeah,
They are so open with that to tell their story because inside they want to help,
yeah.
And so it was just really a great experience. And as I go along, I find other families to interview. And you're totally right, Robert. And that is the sad part, is that with you, when you're talking about generational businesses or family businesses, it's like a 30%. And then for like the third generation, it drops down to 10% succession rate.
Wow.
And so, but we have to remember that's the foundation of our country. If your
Hmm.
father was a farmer, you were going to be a farmer. As a kid,
Yeah.
you were working and learning that. And so it just really, we begin to break up that. And it really goes back to, having strong families build strong communities, build strong nations.
Yeah,
And
it's
so what I'm
interesting.
trying to do is to get back to that, where we can
Yeah.
start building stronger family units, stronger businesses, stronger communities, and not let it just be about, I need some money. I heard somebody told me I should do a business. I'm going to do a business. And then you're running all over the place and wondering why you don't succeed because you don't have a purpose and you really don't know exactly what you're doing. And
Hmm.
life is so much easier is when we listen to ourselves and understand that natural gifts that we have, and anybody can make it when you are really tapped into who you are.
Yeah.
And then you're able to know about your branding and how you approach
Yeah,
people and use that style for that.
One
that
of
that's big right there. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Rob.
Oh no, what I was just going to say. So, Dr. PJ, before we got on, I was lurking and stalking on your website, and I saw this great video that you put, about just trying to be the best, and how transferable your video was with respect to small businesses. And I would certainly encourage everybody to to go, but at least just take the 10 or 12 minutes that video is about the Buccaneers. And when you say about having the passion, I mean, that's like one of your first things that you say is like, you have to be passionate about what you want to do. Otherwise,
Mhm.
you're just, it's just not, it's just not going to work.
Yeah,
Right.
so Dr. PJ, one of the things that's really important to me as I'm listening to you, and I'm sitting there listening, and I'm awestruck to some degree, because what you're talking about, I think, is so needed and so relevant just across the spectrum of the small business community. And it really has resonated with me because, look, I come from a long, long line of broke people, right? And so. And so, one of the things that is important to me is just what you talked about, is sort of breaking that chain, if you will, where, it's interesting because it starts way back there. For me, it was actually with my grandmother, who put a bad, terrible hook in my mouth about entrepreneurship. Because, my story real short is I wanted a bicycle. My dad wouldn't buy it for me, but he told me I could have any bicycle that I wanted if I was willing to pay for it. And my grandmother bought me, I'll never forget it. She bought me a 25 cents pack of tomato seeds.
Oh, wow.
And asked my mom if I could rip out her flowers and put my tomatoes in her flower beds. I dug all that up, did all the work, put it all in there. And you know what? A couple of months later, I had these big, giant red tomatoes. I literally put them in a basket, took them to the corner store. And for whatever reason, that man paid me $20 for that whole basket of tomatoes.
Wow.
And I got to tell you that I didn't understand the things that I understand today, but I understood that a 25-cent investment that my grandmother made, 2 months worth of work that I put in, and I got back $20. And I went and bought my $15 bicycle, and my dad made me put $5 in the bank. So my point is that it's an aha teaching moment that I literally got from my grandmother that I still hold on to till this day. And guess what? Believe it or not, do you know that if my children were listening to this, they've heard that story like a zillion times. But here it is now. To your point, I'm actually doing a lot of the work that I'm doing now because I have 4 grandsons, right? And so I want to be able to give these guys the foundation that they need to basically change the trajectory of whatever their lives are going to look like. So that's huge what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Well, question. So look, our weekly podcast is relatively quick and short, so we're coming up on time. So I want to make sure that people know how to get in touch with you. Yeah. And then I need you to promise that you'll come back because we need to pick it up right here because I think you've laid some great groundwork for us to come back and have you back on the show.
Yes, definitely. I'd love to come back and pick up and even to talk more, and we can talk offline about your story because I'm just picking up pieces and I'm like, oh, that's why this happens. But anyway, so yes, people can contact me at info@drpjonline.com. I'm sorry, info@drpj.online.
Gotcha.
Right? info@drpj.online. And
so not .com, but
not
.online.
.com.
Gotcha.
.online. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, Dr. PJ, I think I just posted your website too, www.drpj. Did that come through on the chat? Okay.
Yes, that sure did. And that's my website as well. You can contact me through there as well, drpj.online. It's just drpj, not the whole name. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So I don't know about you, Robert, but man, we have had some great conversation today, man. This has been a bit of a head stretcher for me,
man. It's definitely been fun. And Dr. PJ, next time you come up, I want to talk to you about those 9 steps that you had on that video because that's a half an hour right then and there.
You know? Right.
Oh, absolutely. And guess what we're going to do is we're going to have you cover those 9 steps in the next time we get you on. And so I know you're insanely busy right now with everything that you have going, but just know that we always enjoy interacting with you and learning from you. And Robert and I will already agree that we're absolutely going to have you back on next time.
100%.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
No, that's great. Well, hey, super. So a quick shout out to our guest from a week or so ago, Derek Jones. Mm-hmm. I see you're live in the chat. So shout out to you, Derek. And also want to put a shout out to all the rest of you guys who tune into our podcast each week. Don't forget, you can always go out to aca.credit www.contractors.com/podcast, where you can click on some of the past shows, the recordings that we have. If that information has been meaningful and relevant to you, please feel free to post it in your social media. Help us grow this audience for not only you, but for everyone else in the small business community. Guys, thank you so much again for your time and attention this week, and we will see you on next time on Government Business Today. Thanks,
See you
guys.
guys. Thank you.